Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, we have a guest today to talk about potential new ownership in Chicago. But before we get to our guest, couple bits of news from camp today. We're recording this on what day is today? Thursday. This is
Thursday.
Spring training brain. Nico Hoerner will not be traveling with the team to Japan. It just doesn't make sense for him. They've been targeting the U.S. portion of opening the opener in Arizona. He's still on schedule. This is not a setback. This is not like a huge bit of bad news. I think the plan is why get him jet lagged? He needs to play. He needs to have a normal build up to the season. They've been hopeful that he'd be ready for the U.S. portion. That's the expectation. Doesn't sound like he needs an IL stint. That's like these rules are weird with with Japan, so he won't need to go on the IL. Other little bit of news that I think is important, and we'll get into all this in greater detail next week. Matt Shaw is on target to play in a game on Sunday, and everything is still on the table for him. So he has a chance to make the roster for Japan. I think that's a significant bit of news. And I would say this, we have, I think we may have touched on this earlier in the week, but if you're talking about second base, Gage Workman is not in the mix for second base. If there's only a hole at second base, it would be Birdie, Vidal Brujan, and possibly Nicky Lopez.
Okay.
Those are the three names I would keep an eye on for second base. If there's a hole at third base, Gage Workman is in the mix as well. So we can touch on that more later, Patrick. For now, let's get to our guest. Second time on the show, right?
Our guy.
Yeah, our guy Jon Greenberg. What's up? Little Justin Ishbia news. We always bring you on for the Sox stuff.
I'm like your Sox correspondent.
Yeah.
Stop making excuses for Nico Hoerner. We know he's not playing this year.
He's fine. He's good. He gave the news to Jesse is what I'm upset about. Why not come up to me and tell me? That's the upsetting bit, right?
I'd be
being honest. All right, Jon, you've been all over this. You broke this news, right? You had Justin Ishbia.
Yeah, come on, man. This is like the biggest sports story in Chicago in a long time.
Yeah.
I got Arizona brain, dude. You know, I can't keep up on everything. White Sox. I stay out of White Sox business.
Yeah,
why don't you just tell us how this came about? I mean, it's pretty significant because the way I talked to Dan Hayes over the past month, and it sounded like that was happening in Minnesota. So how did this happen?
Yeah, I shocked Dan Hayes' world when I texted him. Like a week. I think it was actually it was last Wednesday. Maybe I found out about it, and I texted him. You know, he's the first person I texted about it, or second person. But yeah, and he couldn't believe it. So from what it sounds like from our reporting is that during the process of Justin Ishbia looking to buy the Twins and talking to people and doing all that behind the scenes stuff, that the Reinsdorfs came to him about increasing his share with the team, and it supposedly had happened in the last month. I kind of remember this, but I forgot about it until after we started reporting. Is that Sportico reported in January that both the Ishbia brothers were like those silent limited partners of the White Sox, and that had been going on for like 4 years, and no one knew about it. It had never been reported, and that was from when Michael Reinsdorf, Jerry's son, and his brother Jonathan started buying out the limited partners. They had an offer in 2021 to buy them out. It was at such a low valuation, like around $900 million, that some people did sell, but a lot of people were like almost offended by it because it was under $1 billion. And it was just like, why would we do this? But some people that, maybe had liquidity needs or estate planning needs just said, screw it. And I had found out in the fall that how Jonathan and Michael did it was they got people basically funding them money, like people investing with them almost. They had some kind of like economic investing vehicle to make this happen, because they didn't have all that cash on hand, I guess. So they were a part of that. So I guess at first we were like, oh, Justin Ishbia was buying into the White Sox, but it was actually increasing his stake. Now the conflicting stuff is every bit of information that Dan and I got was that this was with a controlling interest in mind. We didn't know. We were, what I was trying to get was whether it's a guarantee, whether it was first right of refusal, when Jerry wants to sell or Jerry passes away, or whether it's like a timeline. Someone in baseball floated the David Blitzer scenario with the Guardians, where he bought in 2022 with he could buy the team within 6 years or something, and he bought 25% or something, and they actually made that public. The Guardians,
right?
White Sox are much different. They wouldn't even. I don't think if I wouldn't have broken this, that they would have told us at all that this happened. Wow. It would have had to come from Ishbia, because they told me when they gave me their statement denying that there's any kind of plan, that they don't make their minority limited partners identities public, and you can't find a list of them anywhere. I know some. That's kind of how we work this. I was on with Bruce, and he said he claimed there's 33 of them. I asked one of the minority partners, and he said there's way more, but maybe those people had all sold, to this group, the extra people. Now there's only 33 left. So there's a lot of, you can't get a straight answer on some of this stuff. So they have till tomorrow, and that would be Friday. I'm speaking on Thursday. They have till Friday the limited partners to decide if they're selling or not. And the valuation, I believe, is around $1.8 billion. I know people that have already signed their papers. I would assume, I can't imagine anyone's waiting till tomorrow's deadline. I think they've already decided. They've known about this for weeks. So yeah, there could be a new owner of the White Sox, or, owner in waiting.
So, John, I have lots of questions, but I think the main one for this podcast is this going to light a fire under Cubs ownership? Because the funny part is Ishbia is this name you just hear, and then, as Ozzie Guillen, I think, once said, Chicago is a very big city that can feel like a very small town. And this is a guy who's in the same way Chris Getz and Jed Hoyer, see each other at pickup. All those Cubs executives at Ishbia live kind of in the same general area where, Ishbia is building this mega compound. A mansion doesn't even do it justice. Is his presence going to spur something within the Cubs?
I mean, I think that's what Cubs fans hope, and I think that's what Cubs executives' hopes are. I mean, seriously, everyone should be thinking about this, because we haven't really had a billionaire like this owning a team in Chicago. And obviously, the Wirtz family has a lot of money from their booze and their real estate, but that's hockey. That's it's oh my God, they're spending $10 million on this guy. This is going to ruin the franchise. It's a different kind of money we're talking about. They've never had this. Jerry never had this kind of money. Mm-hmm. Ricketts does it. Ricketts' dad has this kind of money. Joe Ricketts has this money. Mm-hmm. Tom does not. The Cubs do not. And the McCaskies, of course, are they're cash poor. They have this big. I mean, they make a lot. They make more money than anyone with profits from the Bears, but they don't have their independent money to build a stadium, to do things like that. This guy's got the money to build a stadium on his own, and to really invest in the team when it comes time to invest. So yeah, I think he should put a lot of pressure on the Cubs. And yeah, the compound, if the compound last price I saw was estimated at $80 million, that would be more than any contract the White Sox have ever given out.
That's amazing.
So the guy's house is worth more than any White Sox contract. That's pretty good.
I have questions about money as well. Let's take a quick break and hear from a sponsor before we get to that.
Your hair is so much more than what you see when you look in the mirror. With Nutrafol's science-backed whole body approach, nourish growth from within and achieve your best hair yet.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
Physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients, Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning like stress, hormones, and aging through whole body health.
Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol for a limited time. Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code FOUL. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code FOUL. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code FOUL.
All right, John. I I guess obviously it's a lot more money than we're used to seeing with the owners in Chicago. But are we talking about Steve Cohen type stuff like that, where he's going to behave in that manner, or even if it's not to that level, which is obviously unprecedented in baseball, could it be like the Phillies and John Middleton?
That's
what are we talking about?
Right. I think Middleton. I think it's more of a Middleton. Steve Cohen's in his own like universe,
right?
And obviously the Dodgers have their money, but yeah, I think Middleton would be for him maybe a good comp. You know, I would think the Phillies obviously have the difference is the Phillies have a much bigger cable deal. They have the market to themselves. The White Sox are still, the second team in Chicago, so I don't think we'll be seeing spending like that. But hopefully, hopefully for everyone, he'll be aggressive. I mean, you look at his brother in Phoenix, and they haven't done great. This has been a pretty bad season, but he spent money, and attracted big players. What I like is he's done things like he did that value meal this year at Suns games, like a $2 menu. That, like, no team in Chicago does anything like that. And if any team should do something like that in Chicago, it's the White Sox.
Yeah.
They're the ones that should have. I mean, they do half price Tuesdays, but every day should be like that. There should be cheap water, cheap pretzels, popcorn, hot dogs. Like, that's the one team that needs to do it. I just think, just in general, he doesn't even have to do that. Just White Sox fans are so sick of Jerry Reinsdorf. They just are.
Yeah.
And the way the franchise operates. Everyone just is tired of him. And I just think having some fresh blood in there will change everything. And people's opinions, the people's opinions who matter the most are the White Sox fans, the ones that are going to go to the games. We don't know what's going on with their TV network, and that crapshoot. So they need to spur some actual excitement about the franchise, because even when they're going good, people knew that, didn't have any faith that Jerry would keep it going.
Hey, you know what I'm hearing right now, Patrick? What I'm hearing is Kyle Tucker has a chance to stay in Chicago.
I think it's going to be a little long till he takes control. Not this offseason.
I'm just messing with Cubs fans now. I'm sorry, that was cruel.
That was really mean.
I like the idea of just like how low the bar is when he walks in. I think of, the Wirtz situation of like, hey, maybe we should put our games on TV. And it's like, oh, wow. Like what a genius move. Like,
right.
Put our home, just like the path towards like respectability and just like simple fixes, like just kind of hitting your layups. I think this guy could be walking into a really good situation in that regard.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how he deals with like the public and the media for our sake. Jerry never talks. He did that one when Getz got hired, but I mean, he's just not around. And then you try to reach him for a story like this, and you don't know what to believe. Like, I'm still trying to figure out what what I'm going to be working on is what the status is of this deal, like what it actually means. Because I was thinking about today, like, is it a first right of refusal? Is it something like where his shares, instead of being in the limited part of the company, the weird structure of the White Sox, would he be in like the other? You know what I mean? Would he get a seat on the board? Is that a way to say like, yeah, there's no guaranteed plan, but like he's going to have so many shares that he should get the right to take over? Like no one would be able to have control over him, I guess. The board is hilarious because it's the youngest person on their board is 76. And the only one under 85.
What?
Yeah, Jay Pinsky, 76. He's the only person on the board under the age of 85. The oldest person on the board is former Chicago Sting owner Lee Stern, who's alive still and is 98.
Wow. So there's no real timeline here then. This isn't like something that you have gathered.
We don't know. I thought there was, and then they told me there wasn't. And I think the truth has to be somewhere in the middle. Because, I wrote a follow-up column on this because, we broke it as a straight news story with me and Dan. And then I wrote a column, with the obvious, we were trying to figure out a way to say it in the news story, but I just said it in the column. It wouldn't make any sense. This guy could buy the Twins easily.
Right.
And he was on track to do so. Why would he want to spend more money to be a silent partner for Jerry Reinsdorf for an indefinite amount of time? If he wanted to buy a team, like, he didn't have to buy a team. But it sounds like he was really interested in it. And Dan's reporting is rock solid that he was the guy for that team. And people in the Twins thought it was happening by opening day. So like that just doesn't make any sense. Why would a billionaire? This guy's got the money. This isn't a Dave Stewart situation, where Britt reported on Dave Stewart's interest, but his group didn't have the money.
Right.
From what the rumors we heard is that he met with Jerry and he just didn't have the cash to do it. He might have tried to put the team on layaway or something, but like, and Jerry Reinsdorf's not getting taken advantage of. The one thing Jerry doesn't know anything about running a baseball team well. He knows a lot about running it, but not well. Jerry Reinsdorf's not getting taken advantage of financially.
Right.
So the deal's happening,
Well, a huge piece of this too, John, is the 78. And it's kind of like that
Yes.
last frontier in terms of like Chicago real estate. Like, I'm almost surprised more people haven't, or maybe they have, but like that represents such an enormous opportunity for these kind of like masters of the universe in Chicago. Like, do you think Ishbia gives them not just the capital, but also maybe some of the credibility and connections to like build essentially like a whole nother neighborhood in Chicago?
Well, yeah, right. Because I'd heard, from people connected in that world that the Chicago Fire were the leaders to take that land and build the stadium there because their owner, Joe Mansueto, is willing to pay for the stadium on his own, and willing to do it. Now, if you have Ishbia willing to spend money and build a stadium on his own, I mean, I think you would put the White Sox over the Fire there. I don't know. Like, I've been on that land. I don't know if it can really support a stadium, like how that would work. There wouldn't be the parking. There wouldn't be the tailgating. But yeah. Or, I mean, listen, I know we all kind of written off, Bridgeport, but they could actually maybe for once develop that area around.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
That was a massive failure by the White Sox of just
massive. And I know people involved, like very wealthy people that have told me like, they don't think that's just like, oh, you've got to get out of there. Like if you actually build it up and, advertise it a little more as being safer, because I think there's people in the suburbs that still don't think it's safe, even though Bridgeport's actually full of nice restaurants and like interesting things.
Yeah.
And like the White Sox, if you notice, have leaned back into Bridgeport, by having their fake Sox Fest at the Renova Theater, and they were like really big at trying to like market Bridgeport. They're having a concert after the opener. Bone Thugs is playing there.
It's 1995.
I was like, the Bone Thugs concert should be at the stadium, and the White Sox game should be played in the theater.
What
will make people happy?
This definitely eliminates any idea. Like, I don't know if this was ever even a consideration, but with all the stadium talk, and then Jerry going to Nashville at that one point, it eliminates any chance of the White Sox leaving.
I mean,
right?
He does have Nashville connections. He went to Vandy Law School.
Okay.
He's a minority owner of their soccer team there. I think he has an office there, so that doesn't automatically. But why would a guy build a $80 million house in the city, buy the team in the city, and then move the team away to make his life more difficult? That doesn't. Again, we have to go to the logic here.
Right.
But I've also heard in general, like we heard it from our baseball, like one of our editors said to me when we were doing the story, is that baseball doesn't want a team to move to Nashville. They don't want teams moving at all anymore.
Right.
And I think that is a big thing. Like they want Nashville to be an expansion market because John Fisher cost the owners a lot of money, which I don't think has been talked about enough. He cost them a lot of money moving to Vegas because they don't get those expansion fees. Tom Ricketts Tom Ricketts would probably rather have the White Sox here because then, because he wants that expansion money down the road. He's probably already marked. Maybe Jed's budget will go up another $5 million if he gets, an expansion fee payout.
Jed will have to fight for that.
Jed will fight for it. He can get another 40-year-old backup infielder, maybe if they get the expansion team and Tom gets paid, because the expansion, they'll have to pay all their other bills first before baseball.
I do think this would be just such a fascinating dynamic because, as we all know, the Cubs like care about public perception, but they don't really like make decisions based on they constantly make unpopular decisions that irritate their fan base, and some of those have turned out well and are justified. But I don't know if they'd automatically like change because of that. But clearly, Steve Cohen's presence in New York has changed things for the Yankees, and this would be on a smaller scale because, like you say, John, like Steve Cohen's kind of a very much an exception. But Ishbia could certainly. And there are people in baseball who. Actually, I told you this, John, like as you were kind of texting me before the story published, like it was funny, like someone within baseball had kind of mentioned this, not Ishbia specific, but like, what is it going to take for the Cubs to be that true big market team? It's like, well, the White Sox could really kind of push them. That may be wishful thinking to the extent that, certain fans may want, but I don't think it would hurt a little more competition, right?
No, absolutely. Competition always, that's the whole point of baseball economics when they went to free agency and stuff like that. When owners were crying poor, all competition did is increase the game. It couldn't hurt this at all. And, I think the Cubs right. They don't make decisions with the White Sox in mind, but I do think the Cubs people do kind of operate with that kind of arrogance that like, okay, we're not the White Sox. Like the White Sox when the White Sox, they were good a few years ago and the Cubs were like, this team's gonna be really good. And then when they flopped, it became same old White Sox, same old Jerry, and things like that. And I think that always gave the Cubs a little bit of cushion. Like, oh, you say we're not spending, but like, White Sox payroll this year is gonna be less than their 2005 payroll.
I mean, that's mind-boggling.
That's
right. They can always say we're not the White Sox. We run our stuff. We're always gonna have full. I think I don't think baseball-wise, because Getz and Jet are close. I don't think there's really that kind of arrogance in their side anymore.
No.
But I do think it comes from the business side because they're full every night. Whereas the White Sox are scrambling for tickets. They can always kind of operate with knowing that they have it better than them.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be fascinating if they start to push, if Ishbia takes control in the next year or two, and they
I don't
start
think
to
it'll
push
be, I mean, unless, God willing, Jerry's okay. But I mean, when someone floated the Blitzer thing, that made me think it was like 4 or 5 years down.
Okay.
But
so it would be post new CBA too. So who the hell knows what type of money we're talking about, right? Like it may just be a much more even playing field.
If I'm Ishbia, I would actually request not to take over until the new CBA for a couple reasons. One, he doesn't have to look like a bad. I mean, he wouldn't be counted on anyway because he wouldn't be a part of any kind of big fights because he's a new owner. But you want to come in like Patrick said, he's gonna be a hero regardless, taking over for Jerry. Come in after the new CBA signed. You don't have to be a hawk. You don't have to offend your fans. Right. And the fact you'll have like more, an idea of fiscal certainty. And even the richest people want that. They want to have some certainty to know what they're spending. We know the Cubs. I mean, look, Ricketts is going to be a hawk in this CBA negotiation. I mean, that's
absolutely.
And if Jerry's still in control and still has any kind of say in anything, he will be as well. Because they're fighting for, I mean, it's like everything's being done. Every decision, especially at Wrigley, is being made with the new CBA in mind, right?
Oh, yeah. At Wrigley, you're saying with the Cubs? Oh, yeah. That's a big part of why we're seeing a lot of the things that we're seeing. Yeah, absolutely.
That's why Bregman wasn't signed. I mean,
couldn't go. Yeah, they got to be careful with years, especially money and years. Those are that's that is a big part of all the decisions that we're seeing. And I mean, look at all the contracts they have. They have one if you want to count Shota, 2, but they have so much money coming off their books. Now it could turn out to be great, right? If there are real restrictions made and suddenly money is curtailed, spending is curtailed, the Cubs will be set up really well, right? Post CBA. But if it's the same thing, but if the rules barely change, it won't matter. Like then they basically didn't leverage these 2 years when all these young kids are coming up and they have money, in theory, money to spend, but aren't leveraging their financial might. But that's the reality they're faced with. That's they're the mid-market Cubs.
Well, yeah. And then we got to see what's going on with their TV network. What's going on with the Comcast deal. They've been month to month for like a year. CHSN. I assume they're both going to end up just on the upper tier of Comcast.
Yeah. You probably know more about that than either of us. What is going on there?
I mean, from what I've heard, you've seen it in a couple other markets where the remaining RSNs that aren't owned by baseball or on sports are going on like a more premium tier of Comcast. And I'd have to look at the Comcast tiers, but like I know it in the Bay Area is one of them, and I believe there's another one too. I think Yes maybe just did it. They're going in the upper tiers. Not as many people subscribe.
Right.
It's not going. Everyone wants them on the basic one, where the most subscriptions that gets you the most people, the most money per month. That that's what helped teams stay rich for years. So if it's on the upper premium one, yeah, that includes like different sports channels like that I don't even subscribe to. So that's what I think is going to happen to all sports ones that want to stay on Comcast or these big, cable companies. So I think both networks are going to wind up there, but I don't know. It doesn't sound like Comcast is, they haven't blinked too often with the Cubs and the White Sox.
It's a new dynamic. It would theoretically be a new dynamic too of how tight the Reinsdorf and Wirtz families were, that essentially my understanding, the Wirtz is just kind of let Jerry take care of all of that. And obviously the joint ownership between the Bulls and White Sox, like if you're putting together a network or if you're trying to like evolve these things, it'd be those three teams are almost impossible to extricate. And, the Cubs certainly would have liked the Blackhawks to be like the winter program marquee. That was a non-starter. And like, who knows what's going to happen with any of these channels or the business in general. But it seems like there'd be more potential with, kind of an Ishbia White Sox team off on their own rather than kind of those three teams, sort of joined at the hip.
Right. Or do the White Sox become one of those Major League Baseball? Do they just acquiesce to Major League Baseball's idea?
Yeah.
Of Major League Baseball running their stuff.
Yeah, that's true too.
Interesting. I mean, we got to see how that. I have no clue how any of this is going to work in terms of money, but the thing we know though is like everyone talks about it like it's it's doomsday, but baseball is such a great product for TV because it's on every day. You'd have to think it's somewhat valuable. I mean, how else do people know about Prevagen? I mean, they probably forget. But the wildest thing about Marquee is that Prevagen is still like their biggest sponsor. Like, who the hell is buying these like fake these sugar pills?
What is it for? Like, I tune out. I'm so good at tuning out.
It's memory loss that may or may not work.
Maybe I need it. I've forgotten what it is.
Usually very odd. The commercials are very odd. Everyone just seems kind of a little off. I would like them. It'd be kind of funnier if they got like actual like famous people to do it. You know what I mean? Like get like Webster or something to do it like a Prevagen.
I mean, Benny's got some good famous people on their commercial.
Oh yeah.
So
what if Madden did a Prevagen commercial? And it was about him remembering all his like the story is that he can't remember all of his stories. That would be the commercial. And he starts telling a story about one of his guys, like who were his guys, his Angels guys. And then he forgets like Gene Autry's name or something. And then he takes a Prevagen and then he starts telling, then he's like, oh, I got, my guy, Babalu.
Babalu was the name I was thinking of. But he'd be good at any commercial. He's so good on camera. Yeah. He's so convincing. And
Cubs and Prevagen, if you're listening, credit me if you do this commercial one day. Or Sosa. How about a Prevagen one where Sosa takes it and he remembers he did PEDs?
Jesus. Yeah.
Maybe
was here. Very exciting.
Ishbia could bring back former White Sox player Sammy Sosa as like the hitting coach. All I'm hearing in Mesa is how, basically Sammy shows up and everyone's listening and he's making these changes. And
he's not leaving, is he, Sahadev? Is he just going to stay
there? He didn't seem like he wanted to. Like someone asked him, it's like, are you going to Japan too? And he like kind of looked around. He's like, I don't know. Maybe I'll, like I think he was like wanting an invite in the middle of that press conference. He was kind of looking around like, where are the tickets?
How excited is Sammy to be Sammy again? Like you saw it at Cubs convention where he did like his second lap around the stage. Yeah. Like this is what he missed.
He's thrilled.
Right. People like players love him. Everyone wants his autograph. This is perfect for his ego in his 50s.
You talk about no, he said he doesn't have an ego. That's why people listen to him, John. You talk about bloated coaching staffs. He's like their 16th hitting coach. He is out there giving everyone advice. And you saw the direct result. Vidal Brujan hit a home run. And I told Craig Counsell, if everybody hits 20 plus home runs this season, we know why. Sammy Sosa, gave them advice during spring training. Direct correlation. So, but all credit for the impressive offense that we're likely to see from the Cubs this season. I know where it goes.
It's just going to be all of a sudden we're going to see during the majors. We'll see Sammy like walking in the dugout, like we're going to see him like eating food after games. Like he's just going to be one of those guys that's just everywhere. Which I hope. I think it's great.
That would be
cool.
That would be
without them asking. He's just going to come out there and throw out a pitch.
It's like, no, we already have 4 first pitches. You weren't one of them.
We're going to look up and Sammy's going to be doing the scoreboard with Rick.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, this team needs some charisma, right? I mean, just a little star power, a little like vibrancy. Like it's kind of a lot of cookie cutter in a lot of ways. Otherwise, the organization that he rejoined.
Yeah, well, it's also nice to have he's like the only non-white guy with a beard.
Yeah. Well, okay, so last episode,
Council probably can't grow a beard, but he does not.
Last episode, I went a little hard on what Kevin Alcantara can be, right, Patrick? It was a little, his upside, right? But he's the one that's told us that his upside is superstar and Hall of Famer. So if you're looking for a little confidence and someone with that swagger, Kevin Alcantara, whenever he arrives in the big leagues for good, like that's a guy that has the swagger. Add him with PCA, I think we're seeing a different vibe around this team. So that's where it comes from. But you're right. It's not like Kyle Tucker's going to be out there, bat flipping and giving you, crazy quotes. He's a great ball player.
He is not a good quote. Hey, that's all right. You know what you should do? Bring up the Paul George stuff to Ian Happ and see, because Paul George said he's giving up his podcast to focus on the season, even though the Sixers are 20-37 and the season's almost over. He's now giving up his podcast. Ask Happ if he do that. He would give up his podcast, which apparently still exists.
Let's find out. Well, I mean, the season hasn't started yet. They're NL Central favorites. Fangraphs even like some Fangraphs BP. This is everyone's projecting great things for the Cubs. I know you're super into projections, John. So, and just so everyone knows, no conspiracy theory with Nico Horner. I just watched him take BP. He's good. He's good to go. Fergie Jenkins had his back to the infield and standing in center field, and he almost smoked Fergie. Fergie's okay though. Missed him by a couple feet.
No, yeah, I talked to Horner at Cubs convention, and he was telling felt pretty good about where he was at, like physically then. And you guys have seen it all camp.
Right.
So yeah, no, I that makes a lot of sense, and I'll be there too for that. Me and Nico will both be at that Arizona opener because
there we go.
I'm always spring training that last week. And I think we're leaving that Friday, so I'm going to go that Thursday night to Diamondbacks to be there after Sahadev will still be doing sake bombs in Japan.
I'll be back by then, but I'll probably need some sake bombs to stay awake.
Me and Nico make our debuts.
All right, John, thanks so much for coming on the show. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, which I know John does on multiple accounts. Subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs, and John is on top of all things Justin Ishbia. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks, John. Appreciate you coming on. Take care.
Hey, where's my Madden's gift card?
That's in the mail. Yes, we're sending that. Snail mail. Thanks, everyone. Take care.